Hello, my name is Jimmy Elizondo, and today I would like to say hello to everyone. Thank you for being here. We're going to talk about what total grazing is, how you do it, and what you can get out of it. I am in real world ranching, where our purpose is to maximize your profitability of your ranch while improving your land the fastest. Now let me get to the PowerPoint. So, what is total grazing, the how, what, and why it works? Let me show you. When I am out in the world and I am speaking with other ranchers or farmers, and they ask me what type of grazing I do, and I explain to them, the looks I get from them are very entertaining and show a lot of confusion. Sometimes they just change the topic, or they'll say something like, oh, that's cool, but all in all, I usually have to explain what I mean. And I thought, I bet others of my total grazing students deal with the same thing. So why not start to have a brief training to help all of us to better explain what we do, because it goes beyond an isolated grazing event. It's more advanced than that, it's more detailed than that, and it's part of a bigger picture. Every decision and action we do today impacts future productivity in the short and long term. So today, I talk in detail about what exactly total grazing is and how it works within a ranching business. And I'm going to give examples of ranchers practicing total grazing and so much more. Now, you may be thinking, Jim, we have watched many of your YouTube videos. We know what total grazing is. Thank you very much. Probably you think it is just a branding for non selective grazing, or ultra high density grazing, or any type of intensive grazing. If that is the case, then you might want to pay attention to this episode. Also, I think this episode is important because it's for those of you who have ever gotten looks of confusion when you try to explain to other ranchers or farmers what grazing you do. They are curious about regenerative grazing. They're curious about total grazing, but not really sure what's involved. So, my hope is that this episode expands beyond my audience and pulls people into the possibilities of total grazing. We know that change is needed, but first things first, I'm going to share some stats that maybe you have heard before. I think we are all on the same page that 90% of ranchers are not truly profitable. We are aware that humus has decreased substantially over the years and that subsequently stocking rates have decreased. And this hurts the bottom line because stocking rate determines profitability. We know that a change is needed. So, what I have seen as a grazing expert is that people are aware of the situation we are now in and are opening their minds, changing from conventional practices to what they deemed as regenerative practices. Most ranchers are getting it that we need to change, even if it means learning new things that challenge their current knowledge. Even institutions that have supported conventional practices for many decades are not quickly shifting to what they believe are regenerative practices. So that is pretty promising, right? So, what is exactly total grazing? Well, it is a process. It is a process where plant physiology, soil humus production, and cattle needs are considered. It is a continuum that strives to reach harmony between all these to reach maximum profitability while improving the land the fastest. And total grazing is a process. It's a process that includes non-selective grazing most of the year, selective grazing, and deferred paddocks as stockpile for winter or dry season. Most of the time, non-selective grazing is used. This is to harvest more cow days per grazing and to improve the leaf to stem ratio of the regrowth. As we know, the leafier the pasture is, the better the animal performance we will get. But what may not be so clear is that a leafier pasture will also give fatter roots if appropriate rest is given. Some periods we use selective grazing. For example, when soil gets wet and we get mud. Mud does not allow us to get a high harvest efficiency and we may lose body condition in our cows, which is even more important than harvest efficiency. So finally, the total grazing process also requires to defer pastures in area to have a low cost and leafier feed for winter and the dry season, and to maintain high quality grazing in the green season when the herd simply cannot keep up with the surge of growth. What can we obtain from total grazing in our land? That's the question. There are 7 key benefits. One is higher humus formation, higher stocking rate, leafier pastures, peace of mind knowing exactly how many days of stockpile you have, knowing your land is improving while your grass is growing fatter roots, a much higher profitability while reducing costs, which, as we know, keep increasing faster than our products, and finally, harmony between your land, your cattle, and your financial needs. So, to best explain what total grazing is, let us dive into a few examples from my students. And this is the part that I really enjoy, because when I am, let us say, stuck in an elevator with someone, which is very rare that it is in an elevator, but it kind of sets the scene, right? So let's say I'm in an elevator with someone and we start a little small talk, and someone says, "Well, what do you do?" And when I say that I help ranchers implement total grazing in their ranches or farms, I definitely get a little bit of a confused or what kind of look. And then I say, "Well, let me tell you about a few of my students." And the second I get into examples, their face lights up. They get it. They see the possibility and they are interested. Maybe not for themselves, they're just interested in the topic. And so that's why I wanted to give you examples today. Are you ready? Let's do this. I always like to share this story of one of my favorite students, Ryan from Manitoba, Canada. Those of you who have followed me or who have taken the Total Grazing course, you know of Ryan. But a lot of people that are listening are new here and they've never heard this story, and I feel like it's an incredibly inspiring one. So Ryan had been doing rotational selective grazing for over 15 years, which by the way is much better than set stocking, and was doing well. Also has fields for grain production in Manitoba, Canada. He had been and he has been a leader in his area and knew he could do better. He applied for a Newfield scholarship to visit other English speaking countries and learn about grazing management. He got the Newfield scholarship and went out to learn about grazing management from the best. He visited the United States, Mexico, Brazil, the Netherlands, and New Zealand. He had visited previously other countries in the Southern Hemisphere, And most of his time was spent on farms looking at different grazing systems and visiting grazing consultants and researchers. He also visited me at a client's farm in Florida. Now, you may think, what Florida has in common with Canada? Isn't Florida a hugely different environment than Canada? Yes, Florida is a hugely different environment than Canada, but the main principles are the same anywhere you go. So he was impressed by our stockpile forage as it was in February, and we were getting 400 cow days per acre in that one grazing of stockpile. He made a video of it and went to travel to visit other places overseas to learn from the best. That summer, after returning, he started implementing total grazing on his farm with enormous success. And here is what he said: I cannot wait to try this at home after seeing it firsthand. I started consulting for him soon after. Connor also joined the consulting. He's a cattle manager, and said he learned more from our first phone call last week than he did at 2 years of college when it comes to minerals and cattle management. He's a great young guy and keen on regenerative agriculture. The first year he reported, Ryan, we have an abundance of feed here right now and have baled up about 2,000 bales of straw, and we'll have 1,500 bales of hay and a bit of silage and many, many acres of stockpiled forage. That first year, they doubled their stocking rate, which determines profits, and started to find what rest was needed under his conditions of low rainfall and extreme cold in the winter. Immediately, he recognized, along with his cattle manager, that this was the way forward after having done selective rotational grazing for so long. His pastures got leafier, more diverse, soil is improving faster, and more species diversity on the pastures. This is what Ryan said. People have a tough time getting their head around the high utilization rates of total grazing. Thank you for help getting us started with these concepts. It helped clarify a few things in my mind that were a bit blurry before. Okay, so this is the magic of total grazing that I am talking about. The fact that people like Ryan start improving their farms more than they ever did. The possibilities are huge, so let us talk about a few more examples. Next up is Ryan Herman. Ryan farms in the Iowa-Minnesota border on good soils and had been doing selective rotational grazing for many years. He had soil samples submitted to have a base to compare to, and after 12 or more years under selective rotational grazing, took and analyzed soil samples again and found out that the soil organic matter was the same as his neighbor that did set stocking or continuous grazing. What? No benefit to the soil organic matter from all that work of mock grazing? Then he started to question and search for answers. He had taken my course some years prior, and I met him again at the Practical Farmers of Iowa annual meeting, where he gave a presentation and immediately liked each other. I visited him once and consulted for him online. He started implementing the process of total grazing and made great strides, sharing with me that thanks to my course, he has less problems and lower costs. He started doing the modified leader-follower system with sheep as the leaders with good success and lowered his wintering costs by grazing longer into winter on stockpile forages instead of feeding as much hay as he did before. In that picture where you see there that he said, here I am, leisurely moving my cows while my neighbor is making hay all summer. You can see the neighbor in the back of the picture. on the tractor to feed it to his cows all winter again on the tractor. Ryan has a young family and they enjoy going with him to move the cattle. Having your sons with you at work is a great blessing. His pastures have improved in productivity and diversity with his soil improving. Now he's applying the adapted genetic selection guidelines from my online course to his cattle to improve their harvest efficiency and forage conversion efficiency, which will help the bottom line in a big way. He has been adapting the main principles to his unique environment, and it's what we all need to do. Next, I'd like to introduce you to David Briggs from the Great Lakes region, Michigan. He had been moving his cattle once or twice a day and feeding hay for 6 to 7 months a year and knew that wasn't working. Another main reason he took my online Total Grazing course was his wife pushing him to take it because they watched a video on YouTube of me talking about spending time with family and the importance of free time. He ended up taking the Total Grazing online course, and here is what he said. I previously moved cattle 1 to 2 a day and just let them take the tops of grass plants. The area I used to have cattle all on for 1 day is now lasting 3 to 4 days. We have had a record drought for our area, and I am certain that if I had not switched to total grazing, I would have had to feed hay by mid-July. I am confident I will be able to stockpile grass for the first time ever. I had so much hope for the future, he continued to say, that his biggest limiting belief was that he just could not wrap his head around how much longer it would take to get around his ranch by doing total grazing. The utilization is just so much higher that it is unbelievable. His next step is to improve his genetics to increase his forage conversion efficiency with the adapted genetic selection guidelines in the online course. This is what he wrote. I would tell anyone hesitant to take the course, this is hands down, 100%, the best investment I have ever made for the ranch. These are real life stories, and they aren't unicorns. These are real people with real challenges using total grazing to create a life that aligns with what they know they are capable of. The bottom line is that I believe to my core that everyone can achieve this, and you can truly, truly, truly create a thriving ranch or farm with what you already have. Our Total Grazing online course is the best way to move forward with proven principles that can be adapted to any environment. I'll say it again and again. I really do believe they are. Now, let's talk about the different ways that you can implement total grazing within your business. You can use total grazing for the following operations: cow-calf, stockers, sheep, replacement heifers, leased land, and for custom grazing. I personally use total grazing on my ranch on a grazed dairy, and on my family ranch, they use it on beef cow-calf operation. So at the end of the day, there are so many different ways to implement the total grazing process to your business. Don't think that it has to be one way or the other. There are many ways to skin a cat. So I wanted to share that all with you because I want to expand your mind and really invite you into thinking about how might total grazing work in your existing business or the business you want to create. All right, whether you are implementing total grazing or you're thinking about it, or maybe you never thought about it until now, I encourage you to lean into that and see what's possible. And because I don't want to leave you stranded with all this valuable information, I have an action I want you to take in case you haven't done so. Make sure you join my weekly email list. Head over to www.rwranching.com/join and you will receive a weekly email with tips and knowledge to implement in your ranch or farm. I'll link to it in the show notes as well. Now we can start the questions and answer time. Hey, hello. Hello, hello. I see Lenny Burkhardt, Steve James, no, Steve Sims, Mr. Sigma. Nice to see you all. Okay, if you would like to ask questions. Uh, you can write them in the chat. What else? What else can we do? Let me ask. Okay, well, the purpose of this Facebook Live is for you to see and learn directly from me what is the total grazing process, because people have been confusing it with other things or with mostly with severe grazing, and then they say that you need to come fast and return, and that will harm the roots of the grass. And as you just heard, that's the opposite of what we do. So I wanted to explain it so you know when someone asks, and not okay. Steve Sims, I don't see much residual left behind when you are done grazing. What are the key differences between this and Alan Williams' AMP approach? I believe AMP is I don't remember, but yes, the main difference is that we do achieve higher harvest efficiency, and by doing that, we get more cow days per grazing event, and that allows us to go slower in the rotation and achieve a higher sucking rate. Now, people believe that that's counterproductive for the grass plants when it's actually the opposite. The grass plants with the longer rest period afforded by a non-selective grazing in that situation will grow more leaf per square yard and deeper root and fatter roots. So that is the main difference between what I am saying and what other people are doing. Yes, adaptive multi-paddock grazing. He also talks about selective grazing. And selective grazing will change the species composition, and that's one thing, to undesirable because cows take down the plants they like the best first. Another thing is that there will be less stems, less leaves to stem ratio. When you do selective grazing, the cows consume the green leaves and leave behind the brown leaves and the stems, which continue to respire and consume energy. The difference between the production of energy by photosynthesis in the green leaves and the energy consumed by respiring in the brown leaves and the stems is what you can use for production. After production, the difference between the excess energy created by an abundance of leaves and what's stored as energy reserves in fat roots will be used to produce humus in the soil by the microorganisms that feed on the root. And if they are fat roots, the exudates will be fatty and they will convert more easily to humus, which is a stable fraction of organic matter in your soils. Jose Briggs, what would be the best way to start if I have degraded and really low pastures? Give more land to each lot. By lot, I mean you mean herd, and that's how I started in Florida. It's a showcase where we started with 1% organic matter, sandy soil, white sand, and very little grass, and mostly dog fennel, which is a toxic. Let me put this here, which is a toxic weed. So we started doing non-selective grazing whenever we could, uh, selective grazing when the cows were calving or there was mud, which we didn't get mud in the sand, and we started deferring pastures. When you defer pastures in area, not in the whole farm, spread all over the farm, but in area, that's when in the green season the plants have the opportunity to grow deep and fat roots and tall. And that's when you recruit the best species individuals that they can sprout, germinate, and not be pulled out along with the roots by the cows. And that's where the plant roots get fat and start producing more humus. So after the second row or turnaround of stockpiling half the property on average, because that depends on the year and the rains, then you start to get more humus. And the sand that was white turned to dark brown, and the organic matter percentage in the subtropics, north central Florida went from 1% to 3.18% in 6 years. That's a 55 tons of carbon sequestered per acre in 6 years. Very difficult to do in the subtropics because of high temperatures and tropical grasses. Now here is another question. What is the best way to close or narrow my calving window? I have been total grazing now for 3 years and need more cows, so it is hard to let go of cows. Well, yes, it is hard, but you need to find heifers, replacement heifers. That will be the best choice. And you can gradually shorten your calving season so you can gradually move over to the time of the year when the green grass is abundant and temperatures are conducive to newborn calves to do well. You see, newborn calves are born with their summer coats, not with the winter coats. That should give us a hint. Another question by Kirk Lange. I got 6 months of winter in Quebec. Any suggestion for stockpiling? Keeping in mind bears and raccoons love corn in my area. Oh yeah, they love corn anywhere. In Chihuahua, we have bears. In the tropics, we have raccoons. And not one or two, but 30 or 50. And they come at night and they take all the corn. So I do not suggest corn much, but to stockpile in your area, if you do not get too much snow, if it doesn't get over a couple of feet deep, I don't know in Quebec, uh, then you can do stockpile something like sorghum Sudan, the tall grass, the tall ones like sorghum almond, and or you can also stockpile tall fescue. That may be one of your best choices. Okay. Steve Sims says, okay, that's the question. Not much residual. No, by the way, Steve, Stephen, we do get have a lot of residual, but our harvest efficiency is from 80 to 90%. When you grow a larger volume of forage by allowing a longer rest period and more leaf to stem ratio, so your plants grow fatter roots, that 10 to 20% is more than if you do selective grazing, where you come back faster and you get a much lower forage amount produced in that shorter period. And while you may think that you are leaving a lot of residual, most of it is attached to the roots and it's not decomposing. And by the way, that's not the way we grow humus. We grow humus with a high leaf to stem ratio that feeds the soil microorganisms through root exudates, and those soil microorganisms are digested by other generations of microorganisms, with the final digestion being carried out by fungi, and after a process of humification, it becomes humus, which is a stable fraction of organic matter that lasts for over 100 years. That's what we are after, and that's what we have been mining of our soils or using up. And we need to put it back into our banking account to improve our future and actual productivity. You saw that picture where the grass was very long. Let me show you. Here. Okay. This is a Bermuda grass in Katy, Texas, in the winter. It gets pretty cold there for being the subtropics. And what I wanted to show you, there, you can see that grass. That's Bahia grass, stockpile for winter, picture taken in October of last year. And the leaves are 5 times longer and wider or larger than normal. You could think that it's a different grass species. That's where it was 1% organic matter. And then 4 years ago, we took another soil sample and it came up to 3.18% organic matter. Now we need to take another sample to find out how much it has increased. But our stocking rate has gone up 4 times, and our costs, our wintering costs, have gone down in a big way. So that's what we want to get. And that's where we were getting 400 cow days per acre after frost. Okay. Lenny Burkhardt says, I am calving in May when grass is at its best. It must be cool season grasses, right? But I have had white scours in some of the calves. Mama cow, milk is plenty and rich. How do I deal with white scours in calves? Well, sometimes you get what they call rotavirus, coronavirus, and I would suggest that you vaccinate with a kill virus vaccine your cows 15 days before calving season starts. That may be one way to do it. Another way is to make sure they are doing non-selective grazing, so they have to consume the whole plant, and that will balance the ration, so to speak, better with less excess protein to available energy in the forage. You see, when the cow has a high milk, urea, nitrogen in the milk, that will upset the calf and the consumer. So we don't want to do that. And that comes from grazing or top grazing cool season forages or young cool season forages. That's a big thing there for health. Now, Steven Sims. Okay, that is high utilization. Do you reduce that in the summer to protect the soil surface? As I explained, we do protect the soil surface. If you go to my YouTube channel under Real Wealth Ranching, you can see how well protected it is. There is no bare soil to be seen because we grow so much more forage that 10 to 20% left as residual or as a litter is much more per square yard than if you did selective grazing. so there is no bare soil. Okay, that's very important that you understand. I can send you pictures, or if you do it on Facebook on the Real World Ranching, there is a lot of pictures there that show that we do not leave bare soil. Summer, winter, spring, anytime, fall. Okay, in hot middle Georgia, USA, with 1% organic matter and red clay soil. I have a student, Michael Kinsey, no, yeah, Michael Kinsey in northern Georgia. And I am consulting for a client in Tallahassee, Florida, which is even warmer, maybe. And we have had gotten great results with total grazing. We're bringing back the native grasses. They're coming back by their own. Now we have a Indian grass and little blue stem, a very little big blue stem. I think I've seen one plant and one plant or two of switchgrass. I want more of that. We are basically using Bahia grass, and we are increasing stocking rate and lowering winter costs in a huge way. And cows have better body condition under this type of management than under the selective grazing they had been for 13 years, I believe. And now we're getting much higher productivity, even though it was a drought year last year for us, per year per acre. So it's good to do also the genetics in your environment, because when it gets very hot, the European breeds start to suffer, especially if you have some tall fescue, which in North Georgia they have. I don't know if you have it. In North Florida, we do not have tall fescue. Mostly Bahia grass and poverty grass and coffee wheat. So I know. I've been there. Thank you, Stephen. Are there any other questions? I love to answer questions. That's where I do my best. Thank you, Stephen. Well, this is going very fast. Okay, well, I want to tell you something. When you do the total grazing process correctly, you start to build soil humus, or organic matter and soil humus, which is even more important. And you start to increase your production of grass. When you start, you may be coming back to regraze the first paddock 45 days, 60 days later after grazing. And as soil humus increases, it means that you're going to have more water in your soil and higher fertility. And then what I've noticed in Florida is that the second year we could come back at 45 days instead of 60 days. The third year, 42. The fourth year, 38, then 35. And now we're coming back in 20 days into green season when it's raining. So that's how fast your soil will improve, and your plants will start to grow faster. And you will start to get better species to come back, because what does a small seedling of a desirable species require to not be pulled out with its roots when a cow comes back to regraze? It needs time. It needs time to establish, time to grow roots and to grow up and produce seed for your seed bank, your soil seed bank. And that's what we provide. We provide time, which is impossible to provide under selective grazing, because you come back too fast. And if there is ever a drought and you do not destock, because we need to remember, stocking rate determines profitability. So when they say, oh, you need to destock, that means you need to stop making money. I don't like that. I make my living from a ranch. I have ranches. I not only consult, but I do have my own ranch. And I've been profitable in the last 20 some years after I learned all this because I have a high stocking rate. If you have a high stocking rate and you do selective grazing, it will be inevitable that you will incur in overgrazing whenever you get a short dry spell. So that's why I say selective grazing will owe at high stocking rates required for profits these days will always turn into overgrazing, where overgrazing is regrazing an individual plant before it has replenished its energy reserves. And that happens with selective grazing and can happen also with non-selective grazing. That's why I named this process total grazing, because it includes everything. I hope you understand this and this helps you in making future decisions in your land. Okay, Jose Briggs, how many head per acre will be the optimal? It depends. If you're talking about stocking rate, the highest, because the highest stocking rate will determine your profits because your cost will be divided by more head of cattle. So the higher your stocking rate, the higher your potential profits if you keep them at a low cost and they are productive animals. Now, instant density, or the amount of animals you need to consume the forage before they foul it with their manure, dung, and urine in their hooves. That depends on the amount of forage you are producing. The more forage you produce, the smaller the area for your herd. The less forage you produce, like in the desert, the larger the area for your herd per break. Lenny Burkhardt. I have been total grazing now for 3 years. I took the total grazing class and now have some tools that have changed my farm. My neighbors are watching me. I'm so happy for you, Lenny. Really, really, I'm very happy for you. Thank you. In the best conditions, I don't know what you mean. I have seen a carrying capacity or stocking rates up to 4 cows, no, yeah, 2 to 4 cows per acre, and I have seen 1 cow per 300 acres. So it depends on the environment. So let's talk more about return on investment. That is more important but stocking rate determines profitability, no doubt about it. Okay, well, see you next week at the same day. Thank you very much for being here, and I'll see you next week. Have a great day, and thank you for being here. Goodbye.